Standard.
Hi, I'm Eric Marienthal, and welcome to Modern Saxophone. You know, playing the saxophone can be one of the most fun instruments you can play, and obviously, the better you are at it, the more fun you're going to have. To me, the two most important things about playing are, number one, having a good, strong sound, and also having good, solid technique. These 2 points I'm going to cover today extensively, in addition to playing high notes, jazz improvisation over various styles of music, and some ear training. So, let's get started. As I was saying before, one of the most important things about playing the saxophone is your tone. It's the greatest asset you'll ever have. To me, it's the most important thing. And there's a theory I'd like to pass on to you that I have about embouchure and your throat position and diaphragm. Let's start with the embouchure. Remember that it's important to make sure that your whole embouchure is as relaxed as possible. In fact, the only part of the embouchure that needs to be somewhat firm against the bottom teeth is the point of the bottom lip that actually touches the reed. So let me start off with an exercise here that deals with the lower structure here. What we want to do is create a sound. Actually, we'll start on G. And we'll play this note, and as you play, bring your jaw down slowly until the sound drops out entirely, like this. As you noticed, as I brought the tone down, I lowered my jaw, relaxed it more and more until the sound dropped out entirely. There's a threshold point right there, and just above that point is where you want to have your sound develop. That's where you want to basically anchor your bottom lip. So the idea is to allow the reed to vibrate as freely as possible. In fact, all these embouchure exercises that I'm going to give you all relate to the reed, basically, and you want to try to be as relaxed with it and allow it to vibrate as much as you can. By doing so, your sound will be as big as possible. So let's try that exercise again together. And this time, as we play, you're going to play on the note G on the alto, and if you're playing tenor or soprano, go ahead and play along if you want to, or just watch, or turn off your VCR and do it on your own. As we play, I'll bring my lower lip down, and just before I get to the point where the sound's going to drop out, let's see if we can center our sound at that point. Now you'll notice that just at that point, sound sounds quite a bit flatter and kind of relaxed, kind of unsupported. The idea is that now that we're lacking all the support with your lower lip and lower teeth, lower jaw, you want to support that now with more pressure from your diaphragm. So all the support now, or most of the support anyway, is going to come from your diaphragm in the air as opposed to just biting on the bottom of your mouthpiece. So let's try now to do the same process, except this time try to round out your sound as you get to that point there at just above that cutoff threshold, and see if you can really develop your sound into a more round sound and try to hear some more of the overtones as you play. So this is actually kind of the beginning of a long tone exercise. So I would say it would be a good idea to play this note and some other neighboring tones for 8 beats. And as you do them, actually start out first by doing this little exercise that I've done, just to set your lower lip, just again, nice and relaxed as possible actually, and make up all that support with your diaphragm. So let's try some long tones, and we'll play that pitch and develop the sound as much as we can. Okay, let's move on now to the upper half of the embouchure, the upper teeth and the upper lip. Most importantly, you don't want to be biting too hard on the top of the mouthpiece, or do you want to be pushing down from your upper lip down onto the mouthpiece. Obviously, as we bring your lower embouchure down, and as we get a little bit more relaxed and away from the reed, allowing the reed to vibrate, if we're pushing down from the top, it's going to defeat our purpose. So let me give you an exercise now that will help counter the natural muscles that you have that are kind of naturally pressing down on the top of the mouthpiece. This is kind of a strange little exercise. It's kind of called the bucktooth exercise, where you want to play, again, some long tones, but as you play, try to lift your upper lip off the mouthpiece entirely, so you're playing with your teeth showing, like this. strange as that looks, it's a good exercise because you're countering, again, the muscles that are naturally wanting to go down, and you're developing some that are trying to go up. So try that on long tones for quite a while. I've been practicing it for a while, and it comes fairly easily for me, and it may for you as well. But if not, get in front of a mirror and give it a try. Also, another important point is that by doing this, you're also helping your air to center itself straight into the mouthpiece. A lot of times when you do this exercise, when you first start out, suddenly you'll lose a lot of air. Air will be escaping all over the place. So try with the shape of your throat and the back of your mouth to zero that air right in to the mouthpiece. So let's try that one more time. If you're having a hard time getting this one, what I suggest is getting in front of a mirror, like I said before, and just take your finger and actually lift your lip off the mouthpiece and just practice it. I'd recommend giving it maybe 15 minutes a day or so. Any more than that, and you're likely to be passing out. So give it a try. I bet you'll like this one. The next point to cover is your throat. It's important to make sure that your throat is as open as possible. Your throat is basically the connection between the air, which originates from the diaphragm, and your embouchure, which designates the air and puts it through the horn. If your throat is closed, then you're going to be cutting off the amount of air coming from your diaphragm, and your sound is going to be smaller. One little exercise you can think about is something I call a yawning exercise, where when you yawn, your throat opens as much as it possibly can, and you get this real wide cavernous feeling. So try to yawn, and as you do that, capture that feeling that you have as your throat widens. That is really the optimum position to have your throat inside while you're playing. So let me try to do a little demonstration by playing, and I'll start off with my throat a little bit closed, and the sound will be a bit constricted. And then as I play, I'm going to open my throat more and more and see if you can notice the difference. As you can hear, as I open my throat, it allows more air to come through from the diaphragm, and the sound widens. It's actually kind of a feeling right here behind your Adam's apple and along the sides. So that's definitely an important point that you want to be thinking about all the time while you're playing. The final point I want to cover as far as tone projection goes is the diaphragm. The diaphragm is where all the air that supports your sound comes from, so naturally it's the most important element in constructing your sound. The common mistake is to not support from your diaphragm, rather support from your chest. A lot of times your air just sort of slowly comes from the diaphragm, and you're really kind of pushing from the chest. So let me illustrate one point by playing a couple notes. First, I'm going to play a note and just have the air supporting just sort of from the chest here. By doing that, your sound is constricted and small. What you really want to do is always be pushing from your diaphragm. Really give a good, strong support like this. You really want to have that sound really full and big. It's not to say that you, by supporting, you're automatically going to get louder. The idea is that you want to have the volume of air large, but you control your actual dynamics, your volume, by the rate of air. And so you always want to have the support even when you're playing soft, but you just want to slow the air down. So, let me show you a little exercise here with a piece of paper that you might want to try at home. And the idea is to hold the paper up and just blow and try to keep a steady stream of air going onto the paper, and try to hold it up without letting it down, and support your stream with your diaphragm. Really push from your stomach. Well, it might look a little silly. And if you do it too many times, you might pass out from that too. But it really is a good exercise, and it helps you develop that strength you need from your stomach, from your diaphragm. Here's an exercise that I'd like to give to you that I practice every day, and I feel it's a great practice tool. It's called the ascending and descending chromatic exercise. Actually, originally, it was a flute exercise, and you may have played it on the flute yourself, but it translates to saxophone very, very well. Let me describe what it is. Basically, it's just a chromatic scale going up and down with every other note returning to the tonic. So let me demonstrate the scale for you. Oh, I'd like to now mention also that I'm going to play this exercise with a drum machine, actually. Either practicing with a drum machine or a metronome is very, very important, both as a practicing tool to even out your technique and make sure you're really locking into the time. By doing that with every note, you're really gaining control over your fingers and where and exactly when you're pressing them down. Also, it just improves your time sense when it comes time to playing with other musicians, rhythm sections, and improvising. It's invaluable to have good, strong, solid time to be able to lock in to a metronome or to a drummer. So, with the aid of this drum machine here, let me demonstrate this exercise starting from low G going up to middle G. Okay, so the idea actually is to start as low as you can, start at the very bottom of the horn on B flat and go on up. Play each one a few times and keep the metronome going and go up the horn chromatically. B, C, and all the way up to F. So when you reach that point, you turn back around and start descending, starting on F, except this time you're going down and every other note is the top F. Let me demonstrate that. And you work your way down the horn until you get down to B flat again. If you do each of those twice and at a moderate tempo like I just did, and without stopping, it should probably take you maybe 15, 20 minutes. One great piece of advice about practicing too is that you can consider it like weightlifting, like exercise, actual physical exercise. And if you maintain like a steady flow of exercise, if you keep playing just like riding a bike or jogging, you're developing muscles, and that's what physically playing a saxophone or any wind instrument, any instrument for that matter, is all about. You want to develop muscles so that you're able to play it more easily. So the tempo is definitely your choice, but I'd say never play the exercise any faster, for sure not any faster than what feels comfortable. A big secret about technique, and especially how playing fast, is practicing slowly. I definitely feel that when I am at my best technically, I've practiced a lot just very, very slowly, and I feel like I can really move around the horn the best if I practice that way. So let me demonstrate one twice that fast for you here. Another thing too about this exercise that you can incorporate is various types of articulation. You can do one series slurring the whole way through, and then you can do some mixing up the articulation, say slurring two and articulating two, or you can staccato the entire exercise, or you can use like a jazz tonguing, like tonguing every other note, such as this. Or, like I say, like staccato. know that exercise is real strong, and if you spend a good 15-20 minutes a day, starting from the very bottom of the horn, going up and going back down, you'll really feel a difference. Now here's an exercise that's actually going to require a little bit of homework on your part. It's called the Motif Exercise. And what you want to do is construct a little musical motif, say 4, 6, 7 notes actually, and write them down and practice them just in a repeated fashion. And ideally what you want to do is find a spot on your horn that you feel like you're a little technically lacking. Say if you feel as though when you play a B major scale, your alternate A sharp fingering down here is a little sluggish and you're kind of having a hard time with it. Develop a little 4-note, say, exercise around that fingering. As a matter of fact, if you write down, say, a whole page worth, say 50 exercises, and put repeat marks after each one, and read it down from top to bottom, you'll find that it makes a terrific series of exercises. And much like the chromatic exercise that we did before, if you can go from top to bottom with a minimal number of stops and interruptions, you'll find that it's a great technique builder. So let's give this one over here that I've written down a shot, and I'll show you what I mean. I had a flute teacher back in Berkeley, and he taught me a great little breathing idea. And that is to make sure that when you play an exercise like that, that requires a long breath, a long phrase, to prepare your air. Believe it or not, it makes quite a difference if you take a breath of air and then hold it for just a slight second, maybe a quarter of a second, half a second. Just hold it there, and it kind of, I don't know, helps set your diaphragm in place. I don't know what it is, but it really helps when you want to play phrases longer, to take a good breath and then wait just a moment before you start playing. Now let me try this exercise that I wrote down. It deals in some wider intervals. Again, on these exercises, you can use all kinds of different articulations, and if you're having trouble, like I say, with keeping an even staccato or alternating short notes to long notes. Now let me give you this exercise here. Just another idea of another pattern that involves going over the octave break. One idea also is that you can do different kinds of metric practicing. You can play half the exercise slow like that, and the other half twice as fast. Now here's some footage from a Chicory Electric Band concert. It's a solo of mine that I played on the song Light Years, and after we watch it, I'm going to discuss the solo. The idea behind playing high notes is to make sure that the note is supported with your air, with your diaphragm, and not achieved by biting down harder on your lip to go higher and higher on the horn. If you do that, number one, your sound will get small and squeaky and really not big and fat like you want. And number two, you're going to end up with an incredibly sore lip after about 5 minutes. So first, let's start off with some fingerings that I use above F sharp. This first circle up here represents the plateau key. These three right here represent 1, 2, and 3 on the left hand. These are 1, 2, and 3 on the right hand. This is your C and E flat keys down here with the pinky of the right hand. This is the octave key here. These are the table keys, and up here are the palm keys. My fingering for F sharp is the typical fingering of the plateau key, the C key, the middle key down here, the octave key, and the side B flat. That one comes out awfully nicely, and if you haven't got a high F sharp key on your saxophone, that's a great alternative fingering. Let me move on now to the G fingering, which is 1 and 3 on the left hand, 1 and 3 on the right hand, and the octave key. The next fingering is the A flat or the G sharp fingering. Same as G, except you just add the side C right over here to the same fingering, and it pops out pretty nicely. Okay, moving on to high A. High for me works two different ways, but the fingering I prefer is this one here of just 2 and 3 on the left hand and the octave key. Sounds like this. Another way to finger that same note is to bring down the right hand. Sometimes it tends to help fatten out the sound a bit. So now let's move on to B flat. This actually is an overtone of high C sharp, so the fingering is the same as C sharp, everything open except the octave key. As a matter of fact, on some of these fingerings, if you feel like the pitch is going a little high, if you feel like a little sharp, you can take the octave key completely off and play, and sometimes that'll bring the pitch down back into reality there. That works really well from G all the way up. So let me demonstrate B flat. Another point about this fingering and the next several up to high D is that a lot of times if you feel as though the pitch is a little bit squirrely or it's just not centering, you can press down the G key, number 3 on the left hand, and that sometimes will help center the sound. Give that a try. The next fingering is high B, and this is an overtone of high D, side high D on the left hand, you can see here. And fingering for high C is E flat. The fingering for high D flat is the same as overblowing high E on the palm keys here. These two palm keys plus the high B flat key down here. And last but not least, the fingering for high D. There's two good fingerings for this note. Again, you can go on the overtone of high F, like this. Or another fingering actually is this one here, where you just use the plateau key and the octave key, and the note pops out great. Okay, now let's go over 3 exercises that might help you out with these altissimo notes. The first one is sort of a half long tone, half articulated exercise, where with the metronome, play the note for 4 beats and then articulate, say, eighth notes staccato for 4 more beats. give it a try. Like that, and ascend all the way to the very top. Now, D isn't the very highest note on the horn. There are more, but that's a pretty good, solid, practical range to start off on if you're just kind of getting going playing high notes. So the very top of the horn would sound like this. The second exercise is an octave exercise where you can play fairly long notes, I suppose, but start on a note on the horn, an octave below a note that you're going to reach for up on top. Say we'll go for G. The exercise could go like this. Again, you want to practice nice and slow to gain real good solid technique on these fingering. Once you've done that, speed it up or double it up like this. Or double it up even more. This exercise is particularly good to make sure that the note up on top is in tune with the note down on the bottom. So make sure you're paying attention to the pitch of each note and that it's not too flat or sharp. An extension of this exercise might be to try to play it legato, like this. By doing that, by not using your tongue, you don't have that crutch. When you're tonguing, it kind of helps establish the note right off the bat. By slurring up to the note, you really need to really concentrate and make sure your throat is nice and open. If it is, and your diaphragm is supporting the note, then it'll come out easily. The third exercise is basically just a chromatic scale that goes from, say, high D up to altissimo high D and back down. Actually, it doesn't have to start on D. That's one example, but you could do it on any note that goes up and crosses the break. Let me show you first some plateau key fingerings for high E and F on the horn. So instead of just fingering them like this, you can use your plateau key and 2 and 3 on the left hand. Same thing for F. Instead of just playing it like this with the palm keys and the side E here. You can play the plateau key in the middle key, number 2 on the left hand, and lift up on number 3. So by doing that, that'll access your fingering for F sharp much more easily. So, with those fingerings, let's try a chromatic exercise that starts from D and goes up to altissimo D and back down. Now let's try one twice as fast. I'd like to go over some articulations with you right now, different ways of tonguing, 4 in particular. Staccato, legato, jazz, and dead tonguing. So let's start off with staccato, and I want to describe the position of the tongue on the reed. If this were my tongue, it would be basically like this, where the top part of the tongue just behind the tip is just behind the tip of the reed. So you should actually be attacking right about there, and with this part of the tongue right about there. So the idea is that you want to place your tongue on the reed and just release enough to allow enough air to go through and create a staccato note, such as this. Try the metronome. So for legato tonguing, you really position your tongue in the same way. It's just that now we're going to release much more air. In fact, you really don't stop the air like you do in staccato tonguing. You just let the air flow, and it's just a lighter tongue. And in playing jazz, you want to approach it a little bit differently. This is actually a good exercise, tonguing-wise, for some of the things that we covered exercise-wise earlier, where you tongue the second and fourth note in a series of 4 notes. So every other note, such as this. You might also want to try this exercise just by improvising a jazz line, maintaining a steady flow of 8th notes and keeping this articulation idea going. The last articulation I wanted to talk about was dead tonguing, where you actually sort of leave your tongue on the reed and continue to blow, and it creates kind of a ooh-wah, ooh-wah kind of a sound. Check it out. What you're doing basically is putting your tongue on the reed and off the reed, but when it's on the reed, it's not exactly pushing hard. So it's, even though you're laying your tongue on the reed, you're still allowing enough air to vibrate the reed, and so sound still comes out. It's kind of a cool little effect. The ability to identify intervals and chords by ear is a very, very important tool in music. If you're playing in a band and there's no charts and you want to learn the melody or the chord progression, you need to use your ear to do so. In my opinion, the easiest way to think of ear training is to relate everything to the major scale. If you play a scale, if you were to play just 2 notes out of that scale, the way to identify the interval is to think of the bottom note as the root of a new major scale, and the top note as another degree of that same scale. So if I were to play, say, and then, well, think of the bottom note as the root of that particular scale, and then just go up until you come to that next note. The interval was a 4th because the top note was 4 scale tones away from the bottom note, or the root. Now, if you think of harmonic intervals, we need to go to the piano and play them both at the same time. So if I was to play a third, the C and E in this case, you can think of it in two different ways here too. Either by identifying both notes one at a time, or just, and more importantly, by identifying the sound of the interval just by hearing both notes together. So try to train your ear to listen for and be able to identify all these two-note intervals by just going to the piano and playing them and just listening and training your ear. Such as we'll try the second, the thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, and octaves. Another thing you can do now is to try to train your ear to listen for triads. And I'll play 4 different triads for you. I'll just add a top note here and play the root, third, and fifth of a major scale and construct a major triad. By flattening the third, you have a minor triad. By flattening the third and the fifth, you have a diminished triad. And by using the root, major third, and sharp raised fifth, you have an augmented triad. So there too, again, you have 2 ways of identifying the chord. Obviously, the easiest of which would be just to sit at the piano and listen to the sound of the chord and get a good beat on what the sound, what it sounds like. Now let's construct some major 7 chords by adding the 7th note of the major scale on top of the existing triad. So to construct a major 7 chord, play our major triad, root, third, and fifth, diatonically, straight from the C scale, and add our 7th. To construct a dominant chord, you want to flat the 7th, so it's root, third, fifth, and flatted 7th. Minor 7th chord with a root, flatted third, fifth, and flat 7th. Minor 7 flat 5 chord with a root, flat third, flat fifth, and flat 7th. The diminished 7th chord with a flat third, flat fifth, and doubly flatted 7th. So it's C, E flat, G flat, and A natural, or B double flat. And finally, the augmented 7th chord with root, third, sharp 5, and flatted 7th. Now these chords obviously are getting into several different notes, and it would be quite a challenge, to say the least, to pick out each one just by listening and trying to relate to the major scale, especially now that we're going away from the diatonic scale and getting into sharps and flats. Let's go through a few of these and see if you can pick some of these intervals out. First, we'll try this one. Got it? Okay, it's a major third. How about this? Minor triad. Let's try one more. Dominant 7th. Okay, well, this will be a great exercise to do at home, sitting in front of the piano and just training yourself as much time as you can stand. The more time you put into an exercise like this, definitely the better off you'll be. And again, it really helps a great deal when it comes time to play in a band where you don't have a piece of music and you've got to use your ears. Now we're going to move on to another piece of footage from the Chick Corea Electric Band, and this is from a solo of mine from the song Got a Match. Let me now give you a couple of new ideas for playing high notes. This first one is called split tones, and it was definitely made famous by David Sanborn. What you do is you take a high note, and by changing your embouchure and the way you blow into the horn, you are able to, instead of just hearing one note, you're able to split the partial of that note, so you're kind of constructing a chord. So the way you achieve, embouchure-wise, the way you achieve that note is to, number one, you want to bring your lower lip down onto the reed, down towards the heart a bit more. Not a lot, but a little bit. Two, you want to angle your air up into the mouthpiece. And three, you want to be biting a little teeny bit with your embouchure. Not very much, obviously, it's against what we were talking about before. But you want to be biting a little bit, and also you want to support a little bit harder with your diaphragm. Basically, you just want to put a little more air through the horn. Let me demonstrate. If you take the same note, and let's start actually by playing the note straight and going into a split tone. Just by bringing your lower lip down and biting a little harder, putting your air up, and supporting a little bit harder with your air, you achieve this cool little sound. You can do it on various notes. G is also a good one to do. The second idea I have for playing high notes is what I call a siren, where you start from one note and end up on another note way higher by sliding or sirening instead of going actually diatomically or chromatically to the note. Let me demonstrate before I explain. What I'll do is start on a definite fingering, in that case a G, and end up on a definite fingering, in that case a high D. But in between, you just sort of half key everything and just sort of approach the whole upper part of the horn as one giant upper partial, basically. What we're doing by having regular fingerings on all those notes in between is basically locking in each of those partials so that they become an actual note. But by just sort of sliding through and pressing your fingers down about halfway, I guess, on each of those fingerings, you get kind of a glissando sort of effect. So let me demonstrate it one more time. Now let's go through some pattern ideas. Let's do one based on a minor 7 arpeggio. You work your way up tempo-wise until it becomes almost a flurry like this. Another minor 7th idea is to descend this time and start from the 5th and go to the 4th, flat 3, and 1, like this. If you double it up, it becomes a lick like this. You can do it in octaves. Or you can do it almost twice that fast. Now we'll move on to a 5 lick, a lick that's actually phrased in 5s. This idea actually was inspired by Chick Corea, who plays a lot of 5-type ideas and is a great influence to a lot of us musicians. So here's one thought. If you double it up, it becomes a lick like this. Another lick sort of idea I had was to take some altissimo fingerings and construct a lick that's actually in 3 but you can play it over 4. And what it is a 7-note pattern grouped in front of a 5-note pattern. And I'll play it slowly first. So if you double that up, it becomes an idea like this. There's some ideas for you to practice. It becomes an idea like this. There's some ideas for you to practice. What I'd like to do now is play over a series of different styles of music for you to incorporate some of the things we've gone over in this video today. I hope you found this video to be helpful and informative. So until next time, we'll see you later.